In this video, I'm going to be looking at the validation groups. You might run to a situation where you need to be able to process a form regardless of what other forms are doing on the same page, and I'm going to explain what I mean to you now. So for example, let me show you what I mean really quickly so you understand. I'm going to take a liberty and just delete everything and start from the beginning. So I'm going to create registration. First of all, let me create a login, and I want the user to be able to log in. So sorry, my mouse is behaving funny. Right, so I would set the label to username, and the username, we have a text box beside it and a password, and that will have a text box beside it as well. Okay, so let's assume that's one form, and there is a button for that, which is this button. So I'm going to change the text on that button to login. So that button is for the login, right, for the login form. So now let's add another form, which is the register form. I'm sure that if you're very smart, you already understood where this is going. So I want username from the user text box, and I also want a password text box, and I also want email address. You know, when people are registering, I want the email address, and we need another button to do. We need a button for them to register, so we change the text on the button to register. So now if I have a required field validator here, and I set to, this is the text box 1, I set to the required field validator to validate text box 1, and let's run our application. And if I click on this button, you see it fires that. It fires it. If I click on this button, it fires it. If I click on that button, it fires it. Any button that I click, if I emptied it and I click this one initially, when it fires the error message. If I click on that one, because they are all in the same group. So how do we make sure that this doesn't happen? Well, we have a cool feature in the ASP.NET that allows us to set the validation group. So this required field validator, we set the validation group to login over the button. We set the validation group to login, the text field validation group to login. Now you get the point, and that the other text box. Come on, text box 2, text box 1, we set the validation group to login. So that means all these controls, all these 4 controls, they all belongs to the same validation group. So let's run our application, and this is the only one that triggers it. So if I should input, let me get rid of the, okay, now if I empty the page again and just if I click on this register, you see it did not trigger the error. So you see, this does not trigger the error. This triggers the error, this doesn't. So I don't know why we get this registration form error in here. but it's okay, everything can be easily fixed. So we need to put these ones as well on their own group. So let me put required field validator here and use it to validate text box 3, required field validator, and text box 3, and if I run the application, if I click on that, it fires only this one, even though there's a required field validator here, but because it doesn't care about what goes on this because it doesn't belong to his validation group, so that's why you didn't get an error. Likewise, let's refresh the page. This one fires this one, and please understand that any control that doesn't belong to a validation group, they are given a default validation group. So there's a default validation groups. Because I haven't specified any validation group for these controls in the registration form, they all belongs to the default validation group, which means they are all going to be validating one another. So that's what you have to understand. But this form is not separated from this one. So let me refresh this again and show you. Even though there's a validation control here, if I click on that button, it will not trigger the validation control here because they're not in the same group. So that is the way to use the validation groups. So if you have any question, don't hesitate to leave me comments on the blog. So thank you very much.